Welcome to Dark Truths. Religion Uncovered, a thought-provoking exploration where we juxtapose the complexities of modern faith with the rich tapestry of ancient theology. Tonight, we are bravely delving into a question that often goes unacknowledged. What happens when heaven seems to fall silent? We're tackling a profound crisis in modern spirituality: unanswered prayers. In today's religious landscape, the silence of God is often seen as a glitch, quickly explained away with comforting phrases like God's timing or trust the process. But if we turn to ancient theology, we find that silence wasn't an absence, rather a powerful form of revelation. In the scriptures, God's voice rings out at beginnings and endings, but in the vast expanse in between, he often seems to withdraw. Think about Abraham. He heard God's call with perfect clarity, only to find that voice would gradually fade. Or Moses, who spoke face to face with the divine, until that vibrant dialogue became a distant memory, and the prophets summoned by divine fire often faced long periods of silence, sometimes wandering for decades without a single word. In the ancient world, believers were conditioned to expect divine silence. Modern believers, however, often feel betrayed by it. This shift in expectation reshapes the very fabric of faith. For ancient believers, unanswered prayers weren't failures of faith. On the contrary, they were formative experiences. Silence was a catalyst that forced them to confront their own limitations. It dismantled certainty, stripped away entitlement, and created a space for spiritual maturity and resilience. In contrast, contemporary belief often reduces prayer to a transaction, a kind of communication technology where you ask correctly, and waited patiently, and expect a response. When that response doesn't come, believers were left on shaky ground, wondering if they've somehow failed, if God has let them down, or worse, if their belief is just an illusion. This reveals how our expectations of prayer have evolved. In ancient traditions, prayer was far less about making requests and more about exposing oneself to the divine. The Psalms are filled with cries that echo unanswered into the void. Why do you hide your face? Or how long will you be silent? These weren't just accusations. They are a deep acknowledgement of the distance that can exist in a relationship with God. Silence was an inherent part of that spiritual journey. Modern religion, however, fears the silence because it means giving up control. A God who responds can be managed and contained. A silent God eludes our grasp. True silence forces believers to act without absolute assurance, to make choices without divine confirmation, and to exist without guarantees, which was a terrifying prospect for institutions built on certainty. In response, modern beliefs often fills the void with noise, music, sermons, slogans, and endless explanations. The goal was to have God perpetually speaking, always affirming, ever available. But ancient theology takes the opposite view. God spoke infrequently, and precisely because his words are so potent, capable of reshaping reality itself. Silence, then, wasn't neglect. It was a divine restraint. It's a space where humanity is tested, not for simple obedience, but for spiritual maturity. In Jewish thought, this is called hester panim, the hiding of the face. God withdraws not to punish us, but to watch how humanity transform without constant intervention. Christianity echoes this in Jesus' wilderness experience. 40 days in the desert with no voice, no reassurance, just the weight of silence. It was in that silence that true identity is forged. In sharp contrast, modern belief often sidesteps the wilderness of silence because it threatens relevance. Churches promise answers. Influencers guarantee clarity. Faith risks becoming a simple solution to life's problems rather than a profound path of engagement. But the ancient traditions understood that faith doesn't promise answers. It fosters the opportunity for a genuine encounter with the divine, and that encounter often begins when the answers stop coming. Silence is a magnifying glass. It reveals our true motivations. Do we seek a relationship, or just results? Are we anchored in truth, or just chasing the comfort of reassurance? In the crucible of silence, our faith is tested, rooted in a genuine connection, or in the outcomes we desire. This is why the most profound spiritual crises in Scripture happen in silence. Job hears nothing in his suffering. David waits in anguish. Jeremiah's cries are ignored. And Jesus, in his deepest despair, calls out only to receive a deafening silence. These were not failures of faith. They were its greatest tests. In contemporary discourse, silence is often misinterpreted as abandonment. But ancient theology sees it as a pivotal transition. God withdraws to facilitate our growth, steering us from dependence toward responsibility. It moved believers from the shores of certainty into the ocean of wisdom, from mere beliefs to authentic faith. And here lies the unsettling truth. Silence is the only state in which humans can act with genuine freedom. A God who consistently answers eliminates moral risk. It's in this silence that this risk is restored, giving us the opportunity to choose good, even when divine validation is absent. So we're left with a challenging question. If God remains silent, will you still choose to act for good? Will you extend compassion? Will you pursue truth, even without confirmation? Silence doesn't mean absence. It means we've been entrusted with the power of consequence. We invite you to engage with this conversation. Share your thoughts in the comments. When heaven becomes silent, what does your faith become? Thanks for watching.